Should we keep rolling?
Yes.
Yeah,
We're ready
and
now.
we're live again.
Okay.
Just place that
Gloria,
together.
you have a question?
So this is the maximum that we would collect because this would give us everything that we need in the plan. If we were to benefit from any other partnerships or generous donations, we would not have to sell all the debts. We'd actually, that would lower the impact to the taxpayer. This is the maximum. If we have no other partners for funding at all, we can do all of this with just the $50 per $100,000 a year to get the entire plan.
Yes.
You have the authority.
The authority, but we don't have
We
to.
don't
if
have
we
to.
don't end up needing that much.
Great point.
And we wouldn't.
And so when we get that great tax calculator, we will put it on the website.
Yes.
That's
I'm sure
exciting.
we'll send it out.
Because it's facts and information.
That's exciting. That would be very helpful. All right, Superintendent Sawyers, do you want to move on to?
Yes. So we're going to transition now. I'm going to invite Mr. Taylor, who's the Director of Assessment and Accountability, to come to the podium. We're going to do the release, the official release of the 2023-24 local report card and update on the continuous improvement plan. So like a 3-second delay that Becky has discovered with me. So it'll happen. So I've asked Mr. Taylor to go through the official release of the local report card information that came out last Friday. So it was released on Friday the 13th, one day later than was anticipated by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So Greg's going to walk through that, and then we'll talk about the impact of that information and into the 2024-25 continuous improvement plan. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again tonight to deliver more great news. Today we're going to talk about our purpose, the report card in general, our official results, and then I'm going to hand it off to Michael to continue on the continuous improvement plan. So starting off, our purpose, as always, is to create a culture of accountability that achieves the best academic and developmental outcomes for each student. With that in mind, we view our report card data as a celebration of the work that's going on in the district. And yeah, so as I mentioned last time, HB 82 replaced the A to F letter grades with a star system. We were obviously shooting for 4 or 5 stars, which is exceeding, and then significantly exceeding those rates. The last time I was here, we knew that we were going to get 5 stars and everything, but progress wasn't up yet. We did receive 5 stars in progress, so we are one of 18 districts in the state to receive 5 stars in every component and overall. Additionally, now we have some more data because we can see everybody else's. I can give you some high-level ranking, or not rankings, but high-level kind of stats on where we are. So our PI was 30th this year in the state, second in Franklin County behind Grandview. We're top 5% in the state for overall PI, overall math PI, ELA PI, 3rd grade ELA proficiency, 8th grade math proficiency, 8th grade ELA proficiency, government proficiency. We have the 4th highest gifted PI in the state. So,
Can you say all that one more time?
yeah, sure. So,
Start from the beginning.
yeah, so 30th highest PI in the state. Second in Franklin County, Grandview is the one, Grandview Heights is the one above us. We are top 5% in the state for all these categories. So our overall PI, our math PI, our ELA PI, and then proficiency in 3rd grade ELA, 8th grade math, 8th grade ELA, and government.
Wow.
So that's outstanding. And then our gifted PI is 4th in the state among every district. So again, we kind of knew that we were going to be in the top 2% based on the denominator for PI for gifted, but this is just certification. We also have the highest proficiency in Franklin County for a couple subjects, including 3rd grade ELA, 6th grade math, and 7th grade math. And we were second in several others. So we were in the top 2 or 3 for almost all subjects. In progress, we had an outstanding top 5% growth index and effect size as well. We were the 7th highest gifted growth index in the state. So our PI was super high and our value added was super high. So they're performing high and they're also growing, which is outstanding as well. We have the 9th highest math PI, or sorry, math growth index. And then we're the top 4% for the ELA growth index. So we're performing very high in everything in progress. Gap closing, we actually have the third highest gap closing component grade in the state this year. So I think Marion Local and New Knoxville are ahead of us. So that's outstanding too. It shows the hard work that everyone's doing and the stressors that teachers and principals and everybody are feeling at the building level pick off. Graduation continues to be a strong point for us. And then early literacy, we rank highly again. We're 11th highest in the state in early literacy, highest in Franklin County.
I just want to echo the gap one because of what we went through in the education world related to the thing called COVID and the gaps that it created for students. The fact that we have closed gaps to become the third highest school district in the state in relationship to looking specifically at those learning gaps of students is significant. Because our teachers and administrators and faculty and staff that are involved in the entire process every single day have done an incredible job and looking specifically at individual students. And as it goes back to our statement of purpose, each student and understanding what can we do to help them academically and developmentally. So the fact that, and tonight's the big debut with Greg, and we're sending out a staff communication because we haven't shared this level of data yet with the staff. So we've been mining. So that's Greg's new world since Friday. So this is what he spent his weekend doing in preparation for today. Now that we have access, because we haven't had access to the state data. Now we do because it's officially been released by the department.
Like I mentioned earlier, we were one of 18 public school districts to receive all fives. Another thing to note is that we were one of 6 districts in the state to have received only 5-star ratings in all components and overall since the A to F system went away in 2022. So that's another outstanding congratulations to us and the other 5 districts. So those are Aurora, Chagrin Falls, Madeira, Solon, and Upper Arlington as well.
So again, there's only 6 school districts in the state that have earned consistent 5 stars in all components and the overall letter grade or replacement of letter grade with 5 stars since 2022. And we're in good company because it's Solon, Aurora, Chagrin Falls,
UA,
Upper Arlington, us, and Madeira. It's a great list.
I can't add any more, so. At the building level, the ELC this year did get a 4-star. Last year they were a 5-star. The ELC is in a unique situation. They're only rated in the gap closing component. And if you dig deeper into the gap closing component, they're only related in a small number of the 10 indicators or measures within the gap closing component. This year they were only measured in 2. Last year they were measured in 3 components. So last year they got a 5-star because the English learner growth metric, they met the minimum N size, which is 15, number of students who are ELs who were enrolled for what the state defines as a full academic year, which is basically first week of October through March 31st. Last year, however, they only had 13 students. So if there were 2 more kids on that list, they would have gotten a 5. But as such, they only got a 4. At the primary school got all 5s. So we knew this going into this week because they didn't get a progress score. They're one of 68 school buildings in the entire state to receive all 5s. There's about 3,000, a little bit over 3,000 buildings that were rated and ranked this year for PI and other subjects. Their PI is in the top 5% of all buildings. 10th in Franklin County, there's 277 schools in Franklin County. And then they were 8th among elementary buildings, and there's 177 elementary buildings in the county. Their ELA performance index was in the top 1% in the state out of all buildings. That's outstanding, and they were the highest in Franklin County. They were the top 3% in their ELA proficiency, so we kind of knew that based on what I said earlier. In gap closing, they got 100% on that component, so they couldn't get any better. They were tied for first, I guess, with 30 other buildings, one of 31, which is outstanding. And then they also had the 9th highest early literacy component in Franklin County. So again, that's another outstanding celebration. They also had the best and highest improving K-3 literacy measure within the early literacy component. So that's how you move kids from being off track to on track. So we're moving kids who are off track to on track at the primary school. At their intermediate school, they got a 4-star in progress, so that's what was missing the last time we looked. They got 5 stars in achievement gap closing, and then they kept their 5-star overall. Students at the intermediate school who are accelerated, there's over 100 of them taking the 7th grade math test, 100% proficient. Their overall PI was in the top 5% again in the state among all buildings, and it was 10th among Franklin County elementary schools as well. We serve elementary age students. They had the 7th highest overall math PI in the county, and their gifted PI was top 2% in the state. So they were another top 2%er that went into the calculation for the max. They also had ELA growth in the top 5%. So they're growing students. At the middle school, all 5s again. So they were also one of the 68 in the state and one of 9 in Franklin County, along with the primary school, to receive all 5 stars. Their PI was also in the top 5% overall in the state. It was also in the top 3% among schools serving middle school age students. We knew that this was going to be a big one. We just didn't know where they were going to fall, but they had the 3rd highest building PI for gifted students in the state. So only 2 other buildings in the state had a higher PI. And they also have 8th highest gifted value added. So that goes back to, we have students who are gifted and doing really well, and they're also growing more, at least more than they should. They were in the top % for all their value added math. And then they had 100% proficiency in their accelerated students. So nearly 200 students in Algebra 1, over 100 students in geometry, and 25 students taking biology. All of those students were proficient. At the high school level, they got a 5-star overall as well. Progress was a 4-star. They were one of 5 high schools in Franklin County to receive an achievement star rating of 5. And they had the 4th highest PI among high schools in Franklin County as well. Devlin Jerome, Upper Arlington, Grandview Heights were above. And then Bexley was the 5th high school to also get 5 stars of achievement. They had a top 5 ELA PI in the state for any high school, and they were the 4th in the county with the same schools I just mentioned before. And they had the top high school gifted PI in the county. So trend in the entire district is that our gifted students are performing outstanding. We have 1,700 accountable gifted students that go into these calculations. So we have a lot more gifted students than if you look at the people who are leading us. They're in the low hundreds or not even 100. So it's outstanding that you can move the needle with 1,700 students.
Any comments or questions related to the data results that Mr. Taylor shared before I switch into the CIP?
Michael, what do you see as the challenges for us moving forward in order to, maintain this level of performance and even build on it? I know, this is hard earned every year.
So I think it goes, we've talked about this from an administrative perspective, and it's the data mining activity, both at the district level that we're doing, that Greg just talked about as specific examples, but more importantly, taking it to the building level, to the grade level, to the classroom level, to the student level, and understanding how do you create a map that illustrates, here's where Johnny is today, and I'm looking at Mrs. Smith and she's shaking her head, but Johnny just came to 1st grade, or Billy's in 2nd grade and Susie's in 3rd grade. How do they do in 1st and 2nd, and where do we have to take them in 3rd to ensure that the gap continues to close, but at the same time, they excel academically for achievement purposes, and at the same time, demonstrate progress that they're exceeding the growth expectation. That's the hard part. That's the secret sauce where the principals, classroom teachers, and working with everybody at the building level for support services that help students. So some kids might get double dipped. Some kids might get triple dipped. So you go to English language arts twice a day. You're getting hit with math 2 or 3 times a day. Literacy is king or queen at the elementary level, and the work that Mrs. Livero is doing and Mrs. Smith is doing specifically with Mr. Emery. And Tara Bogo as our literacy coordinator is incredible because that's where it all starts. It's creating the successful foundation for teachers to have the professional knowledge that's necessary to build the tool chest of their skills to bring that to life for kids in the classroom. And it's not a one size fits all. And that's what New Albany does extremely well, is to figure out at the classroom level with each student, what do we have to do to provide intervention or enrichment to where Greg went on the gifted side to take them deeper and demonstrate that they have that skill set to continue to grow. But it's the individualized level is what I would say is the answer. I don't care where you're at in the school district, it's figuring out how do I help Jen, Paul, Debbie, and Mark do what's necessary to grow and demonstrate their academic success in the classroom. And the related services come with it. So regardless of special education, English language learner, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, all that stuff comes as the total package that's put together for that student. And it's hard because they're mapped differently to find that success. But we have to keep doing that. And really it goes back to, we talk about, and you heard me say it, it's a guaranteed viable curriculum that we dictate the what, the how is the art pedagogically of the teacher to bring that to life with the team of people supporting that student to find what he or she to do.
And as you think about us growing and potentially new students coming in all throughout different grades, how do we handle students coming in at higher levels and trying to make sure we get them up to this level of performance?
It goes back to its creating an individualized plan. So we have students arriving every single day in the school district. Our English language learner population is growing. Our special education population is growing. We are a magnet in some respects of people coming here because of the services that we're providing. We have to continue to figure that out. It becomes hard, and I'm looking at Lori, because from a staffing perspective, some of those positions are not easy to fill. They become challenging depending on the time of year that's somewhat when it would happen as to what we have to do to meet the needs of that child and the services that are provided. So we have to keep doing that. But it's creating the individualized plan as we continue to grow. Staffing will grow over time, not immediately. There'll be some restructuring that happens with what happens with issue 40 in the 2024 campus master plan. But long term, as we end up with over, right now, over 10 years, 1,000 more students, there's additional support and services that are going to be required for those kids, just like it is today. Our ELL services, English language learner services for students, it's growing. I mean, we had students on the first day of school that arrived to school that speak no English, that we had to come up with immediate solutions for. And it wasn't just Mrs. Smith's building, but it was also the middle school and the high school, the intermediate school, and the ELC. Every building was touched this year with a unique circumstance that we've had to figure out solutions for very quickly. And fortunately, with translation services, partnerships with the families, we put solutions in place to start that process that's necessary to ensure we can meet their needs. Lori, anything I missed?
I think you covered it. It is the work of our teachers and all of the people sitting behind us supporting them that makes this happen. Absolutely.
It's not easy, to your point. This is hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But we're very good at what we do. That's why we chose education. We have a phenomenal staff, and they work hard every single day.
So I know we're celebrating at homecoming. Is there anything we can do at the building level to celebrate all of this achievement?
Yeah, we can come up with some ideas. We'll talk to the principals. I'm sure they want something. You're offering is what I heard.
Yes,
Did you
I
hear
think
that?
it's so important to recognize it and just, internalize the achievement.
I just want to say, again, thank you for the report out. And it's obviously fantastic. 1 of 18 with 5 stars across the board, 1 of 6 with 5 stars across the board since we've been measured that way. So again, thank you to everyone, Mr. Sawyer's, all the way through the district. Everybody has contributed to that, and really appreciate all the effort that's gone into our kids' education. So thank you. I also have to unfortunately remind us that we are aspiring to become the best rated public school district in Ohio. So how we get 1 of 1, that's our goal. Just a couple macro things I heard when you were going through the discussion was really around gifted sounds like we're knocking out of the park. We're top 2, top 3 in different things. Gap closing, 5 stars across the board. And then I see progress is maybe where we have a 1 star that we could pick up here or there. And it's just more of a question. And I am not the educator that we have. That's why I'm just on the board. I don't pretend. But the progress component, what does that really look at? Is that I'm reading it, the component looks closely at growth of all students are making based on their past performance. So we have to look at every student as opposed to maybe the gap closing is just looking at student subgroups. So is that the opportunity? I'm just.
Yeah, so gap closing looks at value-added data as well. So value-added data goes into progress data. It does say all students. When you look at, for example, the intermediate school, there are students in the intermediate school that do not count for the intermediate school, but do count for the district because they were recently accelerated. So the intermediate school, because of our acceleration, is going to take a minor hit because of that, but it's not going to hit our overall district data. So they have a 4-star, but those same students, for whatever reason it is, we can ask SAS and they won't tell us. That's who does the value-added ratings. They will not count that accelerated student in their first year of acceleration. So we're missing any accelerated student in math the first time they're accelerated. So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at that kind of data. There are caveats in there. Like we have a 4-star at the early learning center. There's an explanation that we can't fix. But that's within the business rules from the department. When we're looking at progress in particular, the value-added data, it is just looking at the student's progress from up to 3 years, really. They say from year to year. So it's basic at the most simplest level where they're starting first year. This is simple. Like I said, you're ranking them from 1 to 110,000 in the state. Where are they next year? Did they keep the same rating or go up or down? If they kept the same rating, then they met their growth. And like I said, this is an oversimplification, but that's kind of how it's explained for that data. So we're trying to move kids beyond where they were. And it does get difficult when you have higher performing students year over year. That's just something that the higher performing districts deal with. It's something across the state that everyone's looking at. But answer some of your question.
That's helpful background. And again, I don't want my words to be taken the wrong way. We aspire to have 5 stars across the board and highest PI possible, but I recognize there's lots of different factors that go in both the grading system as well as the student population that's shifting as we grow. So I just want to again say thank you. And again, just remind everybody as well that this has been a journey and we really want to thank Superintendent Sawyers and all of our staff for everything that's been these numbers we've got used to being top 6 in these categories. This hasn't always been the case. Always been a very good district, but as President Kalinowski said, how do we continue to sustain deliver for our kids? And so thanks for being part of that.
One of the challenges of the ELC that we're just getting the students sort of anew. We don't have a lot of data on them before they come to school. Is that what makes the progress component particularly challenging? The gap closing?
Yeah, I can explain. So they're not taking a state test. So you don't start taking state tests until 3rd grade. You don't start getting a progress rating until 4th grade.
Right.
So when you look at the gap closing areas, almost all of them are based on whether or not you're taking a state test. And at the kindergarten level, our EL students are taking the OLPA, but we need to meet that threshold to get there. So that really only leaves gifted identification and services, and which we start identifying in 2nd grade essentially, which is just totally the norm among education. And then our chronic absenteeism indicator. So there's not much we can do to change that. It's just based on our grade band. Working at the department, I know that when we're framing report card reform, we have those early primary schools in mind because they're the ones that are kind of the odd ducks getting kind of half a rating for one component, and then we're producing an overall rating. It's only 20 schools in the state, but it's something that I know they're working on to try to make it a little fairer. But that's why there's not state administrative data available to actually calculate rating.
So in other words, we're doing a great job.
Mhm.
The state
Yes.
just isn't capable of telling us.
Exactly. They're not capable of measuring it.
The other thing that I think is important about the ratings is that you know, it is amazing really the level of data that educators get to use for our students, tremendous. But at the core, I think why we are successful is that we have teachers and building leaders who develop relationships with teachers, teachers who develop relationships with students and parents, that the payoff is this, right? So the relationship component of what we do as educators is vitally important. And it's not really measured in this per se, except the result is, in my mind at least, a confirmation of the recognition of the value of those relationships and the effectiveness and authenticity of them, which again, I think it's an incredible accomplishment, because all of this takes time and discipline on the part of our teachers and staff, and on the part of our students and their families. So it's really, I think, something that they, you know, as a community, sharing the success or the pride in the outcome is warranted. Right? We're great because a significant number of people have chosen to help make us great.
I would just like to amend my comments to add Mark's.
All right, so speaking of partnership, Paul started to go down, he had the perfect lead in, and then, so
Thank
it's
you.
fine, I'm gonna go back to it. When he looks at continuous improvement, and that really is the expectation within the school district, we set a vision through the Board of Education several years ago to talk about a commitment to excellence and looking at how do we become or remain the best rated public school district in the state of Ohio. And we don't take that lightly. We work every single year to figure out how do we continuously improve. And we look at this from the accountability perspective, and accountability can be a very negative term, and you've heard me say that before in education. We try to make it a positive understanding that as individuals, we have a responsibility to try to hold ourselves accountable to go back to meeting the academic developmental needs of kids. So you've specifically established a continuous improvement plan to do that. As employees, we're accountable for implementing research-based practices, including the rigorous and aligned curriculum. So that is the what. The common assessments we hear often about. We do assess children to try to give ourselves benchmarks to understand what's working, what's not, and what we need to do differently, because sometimes more of the same could be insanity. So we need to do something different if this child's not responding to what's being implemented. Focused instruction is excellent within the classroom, and then data-driven decisions. So we take this mess called data and try to do the mining activities at the classroom level and at the student level to understand what we specifically can do to better improve meeting their academic developmental needs, but at the same time, hold ourselves to be fiscally responsible as a school district, because that is the expectation of our community. So for tonight, benchmarks 1, 2, and 3, we talked about these at the last board meeting. I am recommending the academic achievement goal specifically for the school district to be the same as earn a district performance index result of 95% or greater. It's literally the equivalent of 5.5 stars. 90% is 5 stars in the state of Ohio. We're looking for the same amount of stretch. Our cohort of kids changes, the number of students in the school district changes, the needs of who is identified changes, but we still need to hold ourselves accountable to having a high level of achievement to demonstrate as a school district we're serving those students. The growth piece, going back to specifically the progress component that Paul was asking about, recommending it is still 4 stars or greater on the local report card as a district. Again, we will continue to look at the opportunities that exist within there, but to where Greg went in the calculation, there are some things in the actual calculation that are determined by the state that we cannot change. So I cannot change how they go back and look specifically at a student and what's happening in Michelle's building, right or wrong, at the ELC level when there is no state assessment that does that, and looking at that 3-year growth pattern and what in 1 year she might have an end size of a cohort of students that constitutes a population for English language learners, and the next year she does not. So she has 15 kids 1 year, she has 13 kids the next. It's going to count 1 year, it won't count the next. I can't control that. It's the number of students in the building at that point in time. I'm getting this. All right, we're having issues with Zoom tonight, so I apologize. Becky's trying to figure it out. For gap closing, I am recommending, since the last Board of Education meeting, we changed the component rating from 4 stars to 5 stars on gap closure for benchmark number 3. For benchmark number 4, we have not changed this since the last Board of Education meeting. So 5 stars on the graduation rate, 50% or more of the class of 25 will earn an honors diploma in the data collection by Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And then again, to educate families about the graduation changes that will occur in 2026, specifically related to the 6 types of honors diplomas. So I think this is a great thing to add to the CIP because it will become educational for our families in the long term, changing this requirement officially beginning with the class of 2026. Class of 5 will earn an industry-based credential or complete a pre-apprenticeship program as reported in the graduation data. Given the work we're doing in career pathways, the graduation seals, and everything that Dr. Mamias is leading at the secondary level with Dr. Russell at the high school and Mr. Freeman at the middle school, this is an opportunity again to educate our families to understand specifically what are those graduation requirements, how can I earn certain seals, what constitutes a pre-apprenticeship program, what constitutes earning an industry-based credential. Again, it's a career pathway that's available for students, and we've worked hard to diversify this pathway at the high school so that we're meeting the needs of all students and projecting opportunities for them to meet the new requirements of the state that leads to college or career after high school, specifically in our pathways. The one that's changed the most that I emailed you about is benchmark number 5. So based upon continued input from the Board of Education since our last meeting and work with the administrative team, we will still do the surveys. I didn't change those. Students will have 3, staff has 2, parents have 1 to specifically work support student belonging, the substance use, and student agency, and then the staff climate that we do in the spring. So we are part of the grant with Martha Holt Jennings for student agency, AKA student voice. Specifically looking at those elements within the school district that requires us to participate in survey work within the school district, both for faculty, staff, students, and parents. We will analyze those survey results to inform and enhance school culture because that is the goal of this benchmark. Mrs. Lofton is leading the work associated with the citizen advisory recommendations from last school year to complete the root cause analysis on student belonging by December. And then at the same time, as an enhancement to look at student belonging in the school district, we're piloting the work that she recently shared with the building principals related to the house systems. So the house systems are coming back to the school district, kindergarten through 12th grade. And Mrs. Lofton will be reporting on that with the principals as the school year progresses. We want to implement strategies to increase parent community engagement and knowledge in current and future needs of our school district based upon board input. We were asked, okay, what does that look like? So I'm giving you some examples. We're actually going to start this school year by implementing a 2024 annual community update. So I just shared that this morning. It's gone to print to be mailed to all residents within the school district to talk about what happened during the 2023-24 school district for accountability, both academically and financially. With town hall meetings, I'm currently working on. Listening sessions have been discussed. I'm going to compare those to your coffee and conversations that the board did. So I left them more generic just to call them listening sessions because they may not be called coffee sessions, depending on the time of day that we would host them. So we will talk about that through President Kalinowski with Board of Education members to structure that throughout the school year. Our work with PTO meetings in the school district, and Mrs. Fuller is the board liaison for that. And then community events, because we're at all kinds of community events that all of us participate in, and it's an opportunity to engage our public. Most recently, Mr. Wilson was an example of that. So he was at Friday Night Lights and he was mingling with the crowd prior to the game, went out to watch the kids and support the kids on the field, came back to mingle during halftime when everybody's coming out of the bleacher stands, went back and watched the game, and then mingled again at the end. So it's just having access to all of us to have conversation. That's the intent. To basically look at engagement strategies. And then lastly, Mrs. Kalinowski and I were having this conversation to talk about other ways that we can enhance community and business partnerships because of the work we're specifically doing in pre-apprenticeship and industry-based credential, but we have other areas across the school district that represent really community engagement and business partnerships. Examples could be senior seminar, industry-based credentials, the community service hour requirement for graduation for the 25 hours. Entrepreneur Day is a great example of working with businesses at the local level, at the elementary school, and then our work with Concord Counseling. So we were trying to come up with other ways that we could think or imagine how we can expand those partnerships to benefit kids in the school district. And then lastly is benchmark number 6. So Mrs. Jenkins was working on this with Mrs. Fuller after our last Board of Education meeting to talk specifically about the wording and the intent of what this benchmark represents, and it is to maximize efficiencies. So as a school district, year over year, we've met this goal in trying to find efficiencies. Most recently, it's been through human resources and dominant positions that weren't filled. That's not our intent year over year. We would like to find efficiencies within the organization or structure, things that we could start doing or stop doing that would generate an efficiency that results in a cost savings. That is the intent of this goal. So we're going to now put that into words and make it the focus. So it's not about what I would be interpreted based on our conversations to be cuts. We're not in the marketplace per se just to make cuts for the sake of making cuts. We're very judicious in how we use taxpayer dollars within the school district. That practice will continue, but we have a responsibility to our taxpayers to see, is there anything we could do more efficiently? Because we are a $100 million business. So are there $798,000 round numbers of efficiencies we can identify? I think we have a responsibility to try to demonstrate that to our taxpayers. With that, I'm going to take questions or comments related to the 24-25 CIP. I will remind you, pursuant to the negotiated agreements in the school district, we have to publish to all faculty and staff in the school district by September 30th what the academic goal is. We typically do that through the adoption of the CIP, which I put on as an addendum this evening because candidly, I forgot to put it on your regular agenda. I apologize. So we're adding it as an addendum this evening to account for the fact that you would actually take action to adopt it. Questions or comments?
I think the opportunity for community and business partnerships is a tremendous way for us to have people that don't necessarily have children or don't have children in the district any longer, not yet. Businesses that don't have that parent-child relationship to the district to have a stake in what we do. And I know people speak very proudly of how well their district does. And I think employers, businesses in a community can feel the same way. And that can help them attract employees, but it at a minimum, it just sort of sets a tone for how we want our community to look. So that's however I can help in that endeavor, I'd love to do it.
Dr. Mize took it. Any other questions or comments related to the CIP?
Michael, so remind me, how do you keep us honest in terms of meeting
So we'll
some
do
of
a
these?
mid-year update
Yeah.
somewhere around January, February when we come back from winter break. So we'll schedule it based upon the board calendar that you and I will work on. So we haven't done that yet. It's on my list of stuff for you. But we will schedule the mid-year update to talk about where we're at and what we specifically have done in each goal to kind of forecast where we're going and how fast we've gone.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about the house system and how that process
coming.
is going.
Megan's ahead of us, so she's probably be the first shining star for it, but the intermediate school's underway and ready to roll. So she's been doing this work and research and study for 2 years. So Megan's ahead of the other buildings, but that's why we're taking our time to